I've said before that the Third Doctor Adventures from Big Finish are like a lovely, comforting, hugging blanket because they so wholeheartedly commit to the format and the style and the presentation of the early 1970s, particularly the Earthbound stories, from the music choices, the transitions, the pacing, and especially the cast as well and the characters that they choose to include. We've had an awful lot of Earthbound stories with a selection of characters. We've also had the 6 or 7 part stories with the Annihilators, with Kaleidoscope. We had Katie Manning return as an older Jo Jones, reuniting with the Third Doctor. We've had stories with Liz Shaw, played by Daisy Ashford, and we've also had Sarah Jane Smith, played by Sadie Miller. But finally, the Third Doctor and his companions are heading out into the wild blue yonder, into space, and we've got this latest box set, this new 6-part story, written by Jonathan Morris, called Revolution in Space. The story takes place on Hygieia, which is essentially a futuristic space-spanning penal colony in the 24th century where Earth is overpopulated. It's basically a concrete and metal planet now. Work is hard to come by, and prisoners which were sent out into asteroids in space are put to work in order to mine minerals and material and resources in the depths of space. And Hygieia is one of these great colonies where the workers, after all of the work that they've been putting in for the decades and the generations now, they've been there for a long time, they are essentially wanting to seize the means of production, based as hell. And the Third Doctor and Sarah Jane Smith land on Hygieia, and the Doctor thinks he might have been sent there by the Time Lords on some sort of secret covert mission where they're given plausible deniability to make sure that the events that are meant to take place during this titular revolution in space in Hygieia goes the way that the history books say that it should. However, there is a BDO in the centre of the asteroid, BDO standing for Big Dumb Object, and it's emanating a telepathic signal. The BDO is able to telepathically influence people in the asteroid, including one of the few prisoners who are still incarcerated on the asteroid, Zyla Kalstein, played by Juliet Aubrey, who is just so malicious and fun and evil in this story. However, in order to explain what's been going on... Oh, no. 1 second. Let's get the right folder up, because I had the script one up, didn't I? So, but I'm not going to be explaining the entire history of this asteroid. Let's go to a clip from Revolution in Space.
But why doesn't Earth want to grant this place... Hygieia, did you say?
Yes, Hygieia.
Why doesn't Earth want to grant you independence?
You don't know?
Of course Sarah doesn't know. We've only just arrived.
Yeah, so you said. And I still don't believe you.
Why would we lie about that?
No, I don't know. You could have been sent to sabotage the mining machines, to stop us being self-sufficient.
I've never heard anything so ridiculous in my life.
Look, would somebody mind answering my question? Why doesn't Earth want to give you independence?
Because, Sarah, in this time period, the Earth is vastly overpopulated. A world of grey cities of concrete and steel. It's exhausted its own mineral and chemical resources, and so it's dependent on colonies such as this for survival.
To establish manned colonies in the asteroid belt took an enormous investment of resources. For years, we've relied upon Earth for all its food, its water, for the very air we breathe. So it's only fair that investment should be repaid.
I'm not talking about cutting them off. We could continue to trade with them on our own terms as an independent nation state.
On our own terms? You owe them everything. Earth built this colony.
No, Governor, we built it. The workers. We're the ones who sweated and suffered to make this rock habitable. We don't owe Earth a thing.
But if it was so awful, why did anyone want to come here in the first place?
Work is hard to come by back on Earth. So a few came just to earn a living, but not enough. So about 40 years ago, Earth made Hygieia a penal colony.
With the prisoners doing the jobs that nobody else wanted?
Pretty much. The idea was they could commute their sentences with hard labour by working in the asteroid mines.
And then they could go home?
In theory. In practice, there was no future for most of them back on Earth, so they decided to stay. I mean, after all, they'd already put so much work into the place, they mostly thought it was worth making a go of it.
I see. Like the convicts sent to Australia, Botany Bay and all that.
Yes, Sarah. It's strange how history often repeats itself.
It's good to see the chat appreciating how great Sadie Miller is, doing an impression of her mum Elizabeth Sladen. She's really, really good in this story in particular as well. Sarah Jane doesn't really have that much to do until like the very end of the story, but it's still a dead ringer performance. It's a terrific impersonation. She does a great job here. Really, really good stuff. And Tim Treloar is terrific as well, really getting the cadence, the inflections of the Third Doctor down to a T. The more I hear of Tim Treloar as the Third Doctor, I think the better he gets. Really, really good stuff. So, Revolution in Space. It's got 2 really good things about it and 4 really bad things about it. The 2 really good parts is episodes 1 and 6, and then the 4 bad parts are episodes 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, the issue with Revolution in Space is that there's some really great ideas, some great world building here, but it does not need to be 6 parts long. It is way too long, and it's really disappointing because there's an awful lot of back and forth. There's very little forward momentum to the story, and it is honestly just a lot of like diplomacy and faffing around in this asteroid, which could be really, really interesting, but it just reminded me a lot of Frontier in Space, and Frontier in Space is not really a good comparison in my eyes. It's a bit unfortunate, especially because the actual like moral complexities of the story and the moral dynamic it's going for seems really interesting on paper, where you've got essentially this penal colony in space that is like subject to Earth jurisdiction and Earth authorities and such, but they want to seize the means of production, which is based as hell. But then you've got these characters who do an uprising, who do the titular revolution in space, and you've got this one character who's like, yeah, we want to like seize the means of production, we want to be good, we want to like work like with Earth, we don't want to be like a servant to Earth, we want to get the fruits of our labor and such. And then you've got another laborer who's like, yeah, but what if we just killed everyone? What if we just just unprompted, just unmotivated, just black and white, just, yeah, I just love killing people, let me just kill everyone, but I really just want to kill people. Like, it's honestly part farce, but it's played straight. It's so strange. You even have like one character who is like getting the brunt of the telepathic forces from the BDO, who's really like, it's Juliet Aubrey as Xyla, who's like the one prisoner left in the asteroid, and she's so dangerous. I mean, it's never actually said what she did, it's left deliberately ambiguous, but it's like, yeah, this prisoner we've got here, just pure evil, pure distilled evil, no moral ambiguity. This is an evil person who was just born evil, Hannibal Lecter style. And, you know, I appreciate the vibes, but it's a case of, you know, you're talking like from like the Australian penal colonies. You're trying to have the like a futuristic version of the Boston Tea Party, where the Ninth Doctor famously pushed boxes at, and you just want to distill the complex moral ambiguity and all of the lessons that history has learnt from those incidents, and just bottle it down to like that Rick and Morty joke assassin, where he's like, oh yeah, I just love killing people, you know, like, here's my card, I just love killing. Like, that's honestly like the moral dilemma in Revolution in Space. What if one of them's good, but the rest of the workers who actually don't want to seize the means of production, they actually just want to kill people because they're just evil? It's genuinely just kind of mad. That's the, like, people are like saying in the chat like Kablam vibes, but it honestly, Kablam, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Kablam is not only more true to life, but it's more morally ambiguous and more morally interesting with more shades of grey than Revolution in Space. And I can't believe I'm saying that. And it's just like 5 episodes of that. Revolution in Space takes one really cool and interesting big swing, but it happens midway through part 6 of 6. 150 minutes in, when it takes a really interesting swing, which is centering around Elizabeth Sladen's character, Sarah Jane Smith, played by Sadie Miller, played brilliantly by Sadie Miller, but then it's just like, oh yeah, we're just gonna do that in 2 or 3 minutes and just be done with it. Maybe if this was just shortened to 3 or 4 parts. Like, this is kind of what I've been worried about with the Third Doctor sets. When you've got like Kaleidoscope and the Annihilators, or Intelligence for War, and Intelligence for War, where you've got these 6 or 7 part stories. If the story's not working, if the characters aren't landing, you're stuck with that story for those 6 or 7 episodes. Whereas with previous box sets, like Volume 8 and Volume 7, which have the Unzal incursion and the Devil's Hoofprints and Conspiracy in Space and the Gulf, etc., if one story's not working for you, you at least have the other one as like insurance, or, you know, one story could work, one might not work as well, but you appreciate them complementing each other. This one, however, part 1 is a really good setup, and I liked the world building and the performances throughout. And part 6, like I said, there's some interesting moments, and it has one really interesting big moral swing, which it like immediately abandons. There's one scene where it seems like Sarah Jane is like certain death, like she's about to die, and then it's like, oh no, have you ever thought about not dying? And then it's like that's the bit. It's a shame. Jonathan Morris is a good writer. I don't know if it was just a brief that he couldn't work with, or maybe he just really, really struggled to make this span out into 6 episodes. But Revolution in Space, honestly, this was kind of tough to sit through. Like, it was tough to listen. I just found myself losing, like, I just found my mind drifting during scenes, and I had to rewind a couple of minutes and re-listen because I got bored and I was listening to something else, unfortunately. Yeah, I don't like being negative, especially with these Big Finish reviews, because there's often some really creative and experimental stuff here, and there's some cool ideas, but like, I'm thinking for this one, either do the BDO, the telepathic entity that's able to manipulate the prisoners, or do the seizing the means of production on a penal colony astronaut. Doing them both, I was kind of waiting for the gotcha moment or the big reveal where, oh, these two really complement each other, and you just didn't realize until we pointed it out, and we we pulled the tablecloth off, and everything was still perfectly there, and it was like a magic trick of storytelling, and it just never happened. And I was just thinking, maybe you could have had one story. You could have had one 3-part story where it's the penal colony, and then another 3-part story where it's this other BDO or something. There's some good ideas here, but stretched over 6 episodes, I do feel like the cast were kind of wasted here. It's a big cast as well. A lot of like the staff on the penal colony as well, they kind of like blended in together as well. Like I couldn't tell you who played who or who these characters are, unfortunately, with the exception of Julia Aubrey, who does a really great job playing Zyla, and also like her little minion Mullins, played by Tom Alexander, who it's a really cool, nice little role as well for him. Really good role. But then it's just like wasted on, oh, who's this prisoner? Oh, just pure evil, like just like irredeemable Hannibal Lecter inspired character. And it's like, okay, that's just sort of the beginning and end of the character. A character who could have worked for a 2 or 3-part story, but stretched over to 6 episodes, it becomes more grating than endearing. Just like other installments in the Third Doctor adventures, the production is really great for the era. It is, honestly, in terms of the aesthetics and the production, the performances, it is what you'd expect from like one of those 4 or 6-part spacefaring stories during the Pertwee era, like The Mutants or Colony in Space or one of the Peladon stories. However, for me, that's not peak Pertwee. That's not like with the Third Doctor at his strongest. And obviously, I think it's great that they've had this story, this 6-parter. I can't really call it a box set because it's the one story. It's great that they've had this story that takes place not on Earth, especially giving Sadie Miller a spacebound story. But yeah, this one just didn't do it for me. This one was a bit of a slog to listen to, unfortunately. However, if you do think that like peak Third Doctor is stories like The Mutants, is stories like Colony in Space, this one might be worth it for you, or might be worth trying out. But honestly, for me, this is quite a safe skip for the Third Doctor. His next box set comes out in October. We don't quite know who the companions are going to be for that one. We don't know if they're going to be following up the Katie Manning, Joe Jones arc, which started a year ago. Yeah, we're getting something similar with the 8th Doctor here, where the Third Doctor is now split between multiple companions. So who knows when's the next time we're going to be having the Third Doctor and Katie Manning reunited with each other. But yeah, for me though, Revolution in Space, good ideas, but it's a safe skip for me, unfortunately. It's a shame. I still can't get over that one of the cliffhangers was, oh, Doctor, I'm about to die. And then next episode, have you ever thought about not dying? Oh yeah, never thought of that. And then that's the cliffhanger. I honestly couldn't believe it when I heard it. Watch Kablam instead. Watch Kablam.